That took some pecking around. I'll tell you, I have a love-hate relationship with Zoom. It is a wonderful software product, but anyway, thanks for your patience, everyone. It's Kelly Coates Gilbert. I'm broadcasting from Dallas, Texas tonight, and I've got with me a really fun guest that is a friend of mine. This is Tammy Grace. She's broadcasting from Nevada tonight. And she's here to talk about her wonderful books that so many readers have fallen in love with. I'm telling you, I just read this last one. She has this series called, I don't want to say it wrong, Hometown Harbor. And her first book I just read, and it was delightful. It features kind of a middle-aged woman who is kind of starting over, and she meets this fireman and finds love in the most unexpected way. And it's just a story that was just so fun. And when I read her reviews, I knew, I could relate, because so many of her reviews were saying that her characters were just like their neighbors or their brothers, their sisters. They felt like they were part of a family. And I think that's a real talent to be able to do that. So welcome, Tammy. I really appreciate you being here with us tonight.
Well, thanks for having me, Kelly, and for such a lovely introduction. That was so sweet of you. I love that series.
Kind of a bungled technological snafu.
Oh. We're here now. Doesn't matter.
We're here now.
Yes, I love that series. You know, it came to me. I was working and getting ready to retire, and I have a 2-hour commute every day. So I had tons of time to think about this book series that I really wanted to write when I retired. And I had spent several visits to the San Juan Islands off the coast of Washington.
Oh, I love the setting.
They're so beautiful. Mm-hmm. And so the one time I was there and I was on the ferry, and there was a woman that was sitting outside with her golden retriever. And I love dogs, especially Goldens. So I went and chatted with her, and it just kind of sparked that little bit of an idea of, okay, there's a lady by herself with her dog. And, you know, she had nothing to do with with the story that came out of it. But that was the spark that started the idea. And I thought, oh, I'm gonna send somebody here to start over, because it's such a lovely little island. And you know, I was able to just kind of craft this little community. And I love stories that are interwoven, you know, with friends that are interwoven throughout the series, and you meet them and revisit them. And so that's what it's about. And my 6th one is coming out in just less than 3 weeks. So
good. Oh, you and I have a book coming out about the same time then.
I know.
One of the things, you guys, that I didn't tell you is that Tammy is a USA Today best-selling author. And that's a pretty dang big deal. That means that out of all the books that go on sale on a particular Tuesday are typically big release days for traditional publishers and indie publishers, but all those books release on a Tuesday, and a very few, 100, get into the top USA Today list. And if you get in the top USA Today list, that's just a stinking big deal. And I think some of you saw that I posted, we had 2 of our authors that were here just recently, Jan Moran and Elizabeth Bromke, both made the USA Today list this week. And both of them credited the fact that they were on She's Reading, and that you guys were so supportive, that you bought books and that you messaged them and you put reviews up and such. But they said that, thank you for letting us be on She's Reading. It helped. So I want y'all to know that you have power as readers. When you buy books and you support a particular author, you can change the trajectory of a career. And Tammy's book is coming out in just 3 weeks. And so you guys have the power to make some magical things happen for Tammy.
Well, and especially, you know, for indie authors, they don't have the big push of, you know, big publishing houses have these huge marketing arms that spend a fortune, you know, to get those books in prime spots. So for indie authors to make it on the list, it's an accomplishment, and it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of readers that are so lovely and supportive. And there's nothing better than hearing from a reader, you know, opening your email when you get up and you get a nice little note from a reader telling you how much your story meant to them. Or I've had notes from people that have been in the hospital, and it's like the series keeps them occupied while they're in the hospital or while they're waiting or healing or whatever. So those are very meaningful to authors.
Well, and I can see where that would especially be so for your stories, Tammy, because if you guys like reading Debbie Maycumber or Cheryl Woods, you'll love Tammy's books. They're wholesome, sweet, small town, but just lovely people and filled with hope. You're not going to close the last pages of a Tammy Grace book and be disappointed. You're going to feel uplifted, and what that's what we need in this particular season of life. Is some uplifting.
Yes, I agree. I think they're and they feel like that writing them. And I was telling a friend the other day, and I was getting my newsletter ready, and told my followers the same thing, that I'm writing this 6th book. It's called Forever Home, and all of them have home in the title. This one's Forever Home. And I said it felt like a vacation for me, because I've had to cancel all my trips this year that I had planned. But going back to that island, and I mean, I feel like I'm right there in the coffee shop, sipping my favorite thing, watching the ferry dock. And I mean, I feel like I'm there, and I really do. I know it sounds a little kooky, but I feel like I'm right there always with my characters. And I spend a lot of time on my characters. I feel like they're real, and I loved writing it. It was like a huge break for me. I didn't have to watch the news. I didn't have to hear about gloom and doom. I could just, escape. So I write what I like to read, and that's how I started.
Yeah. And you guys see kind of a theme of authors on here. And I'm not saying that that's the way it'll always be, but these first early weeks, we have primarily been featuring romantic women's fiction authors who write in that same kind of strain. And each one of us has our own little, special way of doing that. But Tammy's books particularly showcase a heartfelt love of hers, and that is her dogs. So I want you to tell your readers about tell them about your dog, and tell them how that dog made its way into your books, and particularly tell them about your newsletter and what they get when they sign up for it.
Okay, yeah, I kind of mentioned there was a golden on a ferry that kind of started my journey, but I had a golden named Zoe, and she's actually featured in that first book as the dog for the main character. So I wanted to give the main characters in my books are all single women for the most part. And I thought they needed a good, loyal companion that would be there with them throughout their little journey in the book. So they all get a dog. So the first character.
Dogs are like characters in and of themselves.
Yes, they are. And so when I had written several books in the series, I thought, what would be so fun is to interview the dogs, because they're a character in the story, but the story's not told from their perspective. So I wanted everybody to get to know the dogs more. So I asked the dogs lots of different questions, and then put that all together in a little short story type of book. And if you subscribe to my newsletter, which is on my website at tammylgrace.com, be sure and put the middle initial L in there. You'll see at the top there's a little ribbon where you can sign up for the newsletter, and you get that little interview with my dogs as a free thank you gift. So as it turns out, it's fun, and it was a real fun project to do. And put their little pictures in there of what they look like. So
well, and one of the things that I notice is that your covers feature dogs, and we're going to talk a little bit about covers tonight. Your covers are lovely. Absolutely lovely.
Well, thank you.
They fit that series so well. It just makes me want to slip inside the covers.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I really like them. And I especially like that first cover, which, when you're starting out, you're just kind of bumbling around trying to figure out the best way to do it. And I ran across a very talented designer, and she no longer does covers, so I've had to switch. But they were able to carry that theme through, which I like. I like the water usually in the cover with the dog. So I like the women I like not being able to see their face because I like everybody to kind of make up their own mind just based on the descriptions of them, and they're all a little bit more mature, so they're not chick lit, they're not 20 somethings or even really 30 somethings. I do have a character that's about 35, but her life has been filled with a lot of challenges, so she seems a lot more put together and has a lot of stuff to deal with at 35. But that's about my youngest character.
I appreciated that because I was able to really connect, and it didn't take me hardly even a chapter, and I mean, a really great author writes a story and the reader becomes the protagonist. And you exit your own life and you're somebody else for a while, and you do a marvelous job of that. And I was able to connect so easily and felt like I really was. I can't remember her name now. Oh, Sam. Love that name, Sam. Yeah. And Jeff.
Sam was my first dog's name. Oh. So there's the dog again. Yeah. But yeah, I like Sam a lot. And, I have a little bit of the same traits as Sam. I've been married for 35, 36 years now, but 37, I can't even keep track. But I write mostly about women who have had some kind of challenge. Usually they're divorced or single or widowed, or, something has gone wrong. So they're on their own and they kind of have to find their own way or make a new path.
Yeah. So that's what I love is they're choosy. I mean, they just, they're not falling in love because they have to. It actually kind of takes them by surprise.
Right. Yeah. And that's how, I didn't set out to write strict romances. So that, the romance is very light in them, and it's just a facet of their life. It's more about them figuring something out. They're finding themselves more than anything. And along the way, they encounter people, female and male, who make a big difference in their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. It seemed like, especially in that story, one of my all-time favorite tropes is when a woman faces her fears and her reluctance to open herself up for relationship again. Right. And women's fiction is notorious for focusing on relationship, and your books do a great job of that.
Yeah.
Now, also readers, Tammy just signed a contract not so long ago with a traditional publisher called Book Couture. So she's now what everyone considers a hybrid. She independently publishes, has done successfully. I mean, USA Today, best-selling author, and now she signed a traditional contract. And so tell me just a little bit in terms of designing a cover, how that's worked differently for you.
So yeah, and I was kind of reluctant to do it because I really wasn't sure what to expect. And when you're an indie author, you have all the control, which I like control. I'm kind of a control freak, but I decided to give it a try, and they actually found me because of that dog interview, and that's how they connected with me. And they loved the idea of dogs. And so the first book, I'll hold it up and see if I can get it in the camera right, I'll keep trying. Anyway, it's called A Dog's Hope. And this is always goofy on Zoom for me, but dang it. We'll keep trying. There, you can kind of see it. Anyway, it's told from the dog's perspective and also from a 16-year-old boy's perspective. So it's a very emotional story about that connection that we have with dogs.
Oh, so it's a movie.
Yeah, it's similar. So it's and then I wrote a second one for them called A Dog's Chance, and that's also told from the dog's perspective. Yeah. That's a puppy in that book that is looking for a home. Yeah. And in the first
Netflix will be picking this up.
Wouldn't that be great? I hope they're listening right now. So Netflix, feel free to call me anytime.
Give me your phone
and
number.
We can start talking about that. But so they Book Couture does a lot of really fabulous covers. So I had looked at their books and thought a lot of their covers were just lovely. But when you sign with a publisher, you can give them some input. but they don't have to listen to you and they don't have to take it. So, you know, they come up with the cover, and indie wise, you know, you get all the final decisions and change whatever you like or what you don't like. And
you can make a mistake, but it's all yours.
yeah, it's all yours. So,
Yeah.
you know, what's interesting about traditional publishers, I know with Book a Tour, if they float that book out there initially and they get comments about the cover or something doesn't work with that cover, they immediately change the cover.
Yeah, yeah. And so, they have groups and such that they will poll and test covers and test the back copy blurbs and everything, which is really interesting. When I was with a traditional publisher, they actually came and did a photo shoot because all the stories were set in Texas. And this book here, this is a model that they took behind a green screen, and she ended up on every one of the books. See, they just changed the hair color. So they did
she's lovely.
Yeah, they did one photo shoot and they just put different clothes on her. And then they bought this dress at Neiman Marcus downtown, and it was navy blue. Yeah, it was navy blue. And my favorite color is red, so they photoshopped it red. And so, I mean, it's so amazing because you go to a photo shoot and you see all these things, and all of a sudden here comes the cover, you know, and you go, same girl blonde hair, same girl brown hair, same girl black hair.
If only we could just airbrush ourselves in the morning to what we were supposed to be. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that red one. That's my favorite one.
Me too. But it's so fun to watch the process. And so I love all the dogs, you know, the branding of the dogs on all your books. Clearly.
Yeah, I really like dogs, and I think dogs are an attraction for several readers. You know, a lot of readers have dogs, and so I think they're.
It's funny because we were talking about covers just earlier today. Tammy and I are in a you know, we have other friends, and we were just all chatting today, and one of our friends, Tess Thompson, who was here as an author a few weeks back, she just recovered a series, and she brought the covers out to show us and ask us what we thought. And we were just going, oh, we had cover envy. They were so pretty.
So pretty.
And so we were, you know, covers are a big deal because I bet you all would agree. And in the comments, go ahead and tell us, you know, do you pick up a book because of its cover? I mean, it's kind of an old adage, but I
do.
Yeah, I don't read the back cover copy. If the cover doesn't appeal to me, I move on, you know. Yeah. And yet I've stopped and went, oh, that cover, and it makes me turn it over and look. So covers are very, very.
Covers are, they're very much. I think they're the first draw for me for a book, unless it's like an author that I just automatically buy. I don't notice, but in general, covers are a huge draw for me. So.
And then the other thing that we were talking about is characters. You know, the cover is what draws somebody, but when somebody starts a book, I read a book the other day. I got about 3 chapters in and I stopped reading because I just didn't like the characters. And if I don't care about them and I don't care about their journey, or the story doesn't matter to me if I don't like the characters. And, you know, your reviews said characters like a great group of friends and heartwarming people I would like to have over for dinner. That's what was in your reviews.
Right.
So you are really good at characters. So tell me a little bit about that process for you. What is it you do to create characters, and how have you learned to do that? I mean, you do such a good job.
You know, I spend quite a bit of time. It's funny because my editor for the traditional book, I was telling her that I like to spend time and live with my character before I start writing. And she said, oh, I just love that. But I tend to do that. So I have them in my mind. I have an extensive like interview sheet that I fill out for them to kind of get their whole story, and not just their physical description, but what's inside them and what's wrong, maybe what's broken in them and what they're looking for and what's impacted them their whole life. You know, how things happen to them that kind of make them who they are today and where they're going.
I did a workshop one time that said the one question you should ask is, what is the lie that they believe and why?
Right. And usually it's something they believe about themselves.
That's right.
You know, that something is wrong with them, or something's not good enough, or whatever has happened to them is their fault, or, you know, whatever.
Something.
But that's what I tend to do. So I spend a lot of time thinking about them, and they do feel real. So I don't know if that's, it sounds a little hokey, I know, but I just feel like I have to get to know them really well before I start writing. Then once I start writing, it's like I am them, and you know, it just kind of comes much easier. So
yeah, you know what they would say next because you know them.
I know them.
Just trying to find their way.
Right.
Many of you know that I was a former legal investigator and trial paralegal, and I worked on some of the big cases in America. And one of the things that was so fun and fascinating was working with jury consultants. And what they do is they study people and their characteristics and such. And this book was one that I was given. Have you ever seen this book? It's amazing.
No.
Mac Fulfer is one of the biggest jury consultants in America. In fact, John Grisham, when he did that book about the jury consultants, Mac was his person that he was going after. But inside the book, there's just all kinds of things about, you know, the way they look and what it means, and you know, if they've got a certain kind of face, if they've got a certain kind of nose. It's fascinating.
Oh, that sounds fun.
No. And so you can kind of start to, you know, picture. But one of the things that I do first, I'm visual. I go get a picture. Do you get a picture?
I do sometimes. I use Pinterest. So I make a board, you know, with what I think characters look like and things like that. So I do like that. But I don't have to have a picture, you know, to start. It's more thinking for me, you know. I visualize them in my mind, and then I think I try to find a picture that kind of wraps everything up.
Yeah, it's not really a linear process. It's kind of a circular process. And I don't know if your bookshelf looks like this, but I just, before we went on, I pulled out all my books that were character.
I know, I have a ton of books.
You know, everybody, you know, what's one of the first things you learn as a novelist is how to create characters. And
and I agree with your statement about you have to care about them, because I've read several big, huge sellers.
Yeah.
And I've hated the book because I could care less about any of the characters. None of them were likable. I didn't care what happened to them. Oh. So I write a mystery series that's a private detective mystery series. And he also has a dog for his sidekick. But for that, it's less character, but because it's more plot, and, you know, it's a mystery whodunit. So there's a lot of clues and suspects and things like that. But I had to have characters in there. So he's got a nosy aunt that's always sticking her nose into his stories and going to the beauty shop and picking up tidbits for him and, you know, bringing him back. And so he's got a right hand gal that works with him. That's his best friend. And so that they would be perfect for each other, but they never, you know, he's too silly to notice kind of a guy. He's kind of a juvenile guy when it comes to relationships. So he has a lot of character, but it's more plot driven than character driven, where the women's fiction is mostly all character driven. So there is a little bit of a difference, you know, when I'm writing, but I like doing both of them.
Well, you know, one of my favorite books is Gone with the Wind. And if you consider that the early chapters are all about introducing you to the characters, and you understand that, you know, it's in Charleston back in that particular era, you kind of know what's coming. But what was really interesting is that the way she paints Scarlett and the way she paints Melly and the way she, you know, each one of those characters, you know them, and then the plot takes off and things start happening, and then you really care, you know. I love that.
Yeah, and you do have to care. I mean, and that's what I mean about, you know, you have to put enough characterization in there that they actually care about what's happening. The murder, you know, they're all murders, so it's a different victim each time. That, you know, you're not super invested in the victim, but there's a victim there. You're more invested in him, Coop, and his little gang of characters that make up each story. So it's a fun, kind of a balance to me of plot and character, which is kind of fun.
So how do you name your characters?
Oh, that is, I spend quite a bit of time on names. And in fact, that mystery series that I wrote, the first one I wrote, and I could not get the right name for my main character. It just wasn't right. So I just used a placeholder name the whole time I wrote. And then in the end, it finally dawned on me, and I'm like, oh, Coop, that's the name I have to use.
Yeah.
But it has to be the right name. So I spend a little bit of time. A lot of times I'll research the Social Security database based on the age of the person and popular names in that era.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then that kind of helps me narrow the focus a little bit. I try really hard not to use names of friends if I can help it, but it's hard to do that too. And it's so funny.
I do that for a lot of walk-on characters. I've named old 5th grade teachers.
Right.
But I also just name some of my friends and the people I go to church with and such. And they're just the small walk-ons.
Right.
It's funny because then I know if they read my book or not.
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't mind them for the, walk-on character, but I try really hard not to name a main character, because I don't want someone to think it's about them or not. And it was so funny because I worked with a guy named Jeff, and Jeff is in that first book as the main male character. And it didn't really dawn on me I worked with hundreds of people. It wasn't like, there was just 2 guys I worked with. And so when the book came out, he was like, oh, I can't believe you used my name in your book. And I was like, oh yeah, I don't know that I meant to, but yay.
What did you do prior to writing full-time?
I retired from the legislature here in Nevada. So I was a deputy director of the legislative staff. We have nonpartisan.
In Capitol building too. I that's how I started, was working.
Yeah. So I worked there and I loved that job. It was a fun and exciting job. And
kind of
I used some of that in the mystery series. There's a little vein of that goes through there. So. Yeah. So that was a lot of fun, but I love doing this.
When you get to take some kind of a profession and introduce that to readers. In my book, What Matters Most, I did not know about political opposition research. I'd heard of it, but I didn't know about it. And I was able to go to Austin and found a political oppo. And you drive down and all of a sudden there's this old warehouse and you think, where am I? And then you go inside, it's nothing but the sleekest, most modern banks and banks and banks of computers. And all they do all day is dig up dirt on candidates.
Yeah, wouldn't that be a slimy job?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they spend a fortune, doing that. So yeah, I'm happy not to be in that world. The political world is a definitely shark infested waters. So we were all nonpartisan staff. So
so you guys had to escape. Yeah.
But I'm happy.
What was your hardest scene you've ever written?
Wow, I think probably A Dog's Hope. That's the first dog book I did for Book-A-Tour. I had lost my golden Zoe right before I started working on that. And the dog in the book is a golden. And when you meet him, his name's Buddy, and he's older. He's like 12 when you meet him. And so the opening scene in that book, I'm not a real crier or anything, but the opening scene in that book choked me up when I was writing it. And it still chokes me up now, even when I read it. So I think that was a hard one. That book was a great book to write, but it was hard to write. And I think a lot of it was because of her loss was just really heavy on my mind when I wrote that book.
Yeah. And it's done pretty well.
Yeah, it's a popular book. So
yeah, I see it everywhere.
I like that.
Yeah, that's what we hope for.
That's what we're hoping for.
So, do you ever hide any secrets in your books? And, things that maybe people, only a few people might notice?
I think in my mystery books, I think I've hidden a few, maybe like inside jokes, I guess I would call them, more than a secret. So they're not like a secret that leads you to something else in another book. But people that I worked with,
read and go, I see.
yeah, people that I worked with would have called me before, and they're like, "Oh, we recognize something in your book," So I think some of you always seeps into your books, as much as it's not like you craft characters out of exact people, but you take a characteristic from somebody and use that in a character because it's too good to waste, So you mishmash. I always say it's like taking all these little pieces from people that you know or people that you've never met, and you just see doing things, and you put them together to make your perfect, villain or your perfect hero or whatever you're crafting. So I have had a few people comment and say, "Oh, I think I recognize, so and so that we used to work with or whatever." So I think that's kind of funny.
So when did you know you wanted to be a full-time writer?
Oh boy. I started writing in middle school. I had this terrific creative writing teacher, English teacher, who lives not far from me, right down the road still. And he introduced me to creative writing. And he got me, I loved it. And he got me a gig at the local paper. And I had my own column as a middle school and junior high student in our local paper. Wow. And so I love to write, but I never thought about doing it, for a career at that time. So I was very interested in forensic science. That's what I was interested in. But anyway, I ended up not doing that. So once I retired, as I was approaching retirement, I thought I've always wanted to write novels. That's what I've always wanted to do. And I started working young for the state system. So I retired fairly young. And the minute I retired, I wanted to get going. And so I just started writing then and knew that's what I wanted. I wanted to give it a try, and see if I could make a second career of it. So that's when I got serious, but I've always wanted to do it.
Well, we've been on here for about 35 minutes or so. So one of the things that I like to do before we wrap up is I like to do what's called my rapid fire questions. And it's just a couple of questions that I ask every author, and then you just quick give me an answer.
Okay.
And it gives us a little insight into you. So rapid fire questions: chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Pie or cake?
Cake.
Beer or wine?
I don't drink. Water.
Stilettos or flip-flops?
Flip-flops.
Dawn or sunset?
Dawn.
Swimming or walking?
Walking.
Beach or mountains?
I love both of them. Mountains.
Cook or takeout?
Takeout.
Campground or resort?
Resort.
And flowers or massage?
Flowers. But I'll take either.
Yeah, especially. And so before we go, let me ask you that question. How do you celebrate when you get a book done or you release a book? What do you do to celebrate?
I don't do enough. I have learned that from listening to other people. I don't do that much, to tell you the truth. I might have ice cream or something like that. I mean, I'm boring, but I don't do much, and I'm usually moving so quickly into the next one that I don't have time to even really think about it. Now, before I was writing so many books in a year, what I used to do was I would take a month off and I would just binge read and binge watch whatever I wanted. Yeah. And that's, I mean, it's not like a big celebration, but for me, it was like, oh, I love just, being able to do what I want. In these past couple of years, I haven't done that.
So what is the next thing on your mental list that is the big thing that would cause a celebration? What is that next big goal or that next big, I mean, you're already a USA Today bestselling author. So what's your
my dream, this is a dream, is to get one of my books made into television or movie.
Yeah.
So that would cause a big celebration. I don't know what.
Well,
maybe more ice cream
with you. And then before we move on to the giveaways, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about, you were also known for Christmas stories, and I happen to know that you have kind of elbowed up with a bunch of really good writers, and you've got this little project coming out. So why don't you just tease that a little bit?
Oh, sure. I am so excited about this. So we got together. There's 5 authors, and we're going to release what we've named Soul Sisters at Cedar Mountain Lodge. And the first book is going to be a free prologue book called Christmas Sisters, and it releases September 1st, but it's up for pre-order right now, and it will be free. There's some mechanics that have to happen to get it to free. And then there are a total of 6 books in the series. So each of us wrote a book focused on a character in the story. And it's centered around a woman who welcomes 4 foster girls into her house at the holidays. And then each of us took a character and developed our own story based on that premise. So I'm really excited about it. We've had a few early readers read Christmas Sisters, and they love it. So I think it's going to be a load of fun to celebrate and do some things with. So I'm excited.
Well, we're almost at that season. I mean, just literally a month or so away from that season where we all delve into the Christmas books and the Hallmark movies.
Right.
It'll be so wonderful. But I also have a little bit of a treat for you, readers, and that is that I talked to these girls today, and they have agreed to come on, all of them, all at once, as in a panel. So we haven't scheduled it yet, but it's going to be a little later this fall, and they're all going to be here, and they're all going to be here at the same night. We're going to have a big panel discussion. So you'll get to hear more about these books and meet all the authors. You've met some of them already: Judy Kime, Tess Thompson, Tammy, and then I think you've met some of the others at the birthday book bash that we had back in May. So anyway, I'm really tickled because they're going to be on here, and we'll get to talk more about those books. Tonight, why don't you tell our readers about your giveaway?
I am happy to give away, I've got a book called Beach Haven. So I'm happy to give away e-copies of that, and I'll give away 3 e-copies to random people that comment, and I'll be selecting them tomorrow. So I'll post the winners. And if you already have that book, Christmas in Snow Valley is a new Christmas book that's coming out in September. And if you'd rather have that, I'll gift you that one early.
Yeah, oh good, that's great. Well, so make sure now, just in case you didn't catch that, we can't see your comments because we're on Zoom, but presumably you've been commenting through here. So put a comment of sorts, and then Tammy, when this is ended, Tammy's going to go on and she's going to answer all your questions. I'll go on and take a look and see if there's anything that I need to address. But out of all those comments on the Facebook post is who she's going to select those winners from. So you'll want to comment. And before we go, Tammy and I just wanted to shout out to one of our new members. She's become kind of a little bit of a friend. We just want to say hi to Julie tonight, because Julie has been corresponding just a little bit, and I had to twist her arm a little bit to get her to come on She's Reading. She was just a little bit reluctant. She's never done it before, and I told her how to come on here tonight and watch the video. But so let's everybody in the comments say hi, Julie.
Hi, Julie.
Glad you're here.
I hope you're watching us tonight, Julie.
She planned to, so I'm hoping that she's here. Anyway, so good night, everyone, and thank you for your patience. I am going to figure out this Zoom thing. I don't know what happened when my screen went away. I have no idea.
It doesn't matter. We've moved on.
We've moved on, but it was really fun tonight. And Tammy, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And you're one of my favorite people and obviously one of my favorite authors. So thank you for being here.
Well, thanks so much for having me. And I will jump on Facebook when we're done and visit some more with comments.
Great.
Thanks
You're
a lot.
watching because we've got some more authors in the wings. I'll be announcing those soon. So these live chats will be coming up. So keep an eye out. We're going to be having some more of these. All right.
Have a good night,
everyone.
Bye-bye.